something, he or she is requested to text in the chat box. This session will proceed in a manner that it will be having some one-to-one interview sessions, and I request everyone to take a mental note of these points. Proceeding further, it is a great honor for all of us to have Mr. Shafiqullah Asmat Stanikzai, former CEO of the Afghanistan Cricket Board. He was appointed CEO of the ACB in late 2014 by President Ashraf Ghani. Prior to him, Shafiqullah Stanikzai was the director of the national cricket team. In fact, he has been part of the Afghan national team since its beginning, playing in Kabul with the team with Rocks when they didn't even have the basic equipments to play. He's of the strong opinion that cricket as a sport plays a crucial role in unifying the country and believes that a hero, a true hero, resides in every cricketer. And on the behalf of the entire team CNPR, once again, I would like to extend a heartfelt welcome to him for gracing this occasion with his kind and valuable presence. And to proceed further, I would like to hand over the charge to Abhiraj.
Right. A very good morning to you, sir. I hope you're doing well.
Thank you.
Right. So, sir, here at CNPR, we have some questions because when our members got to know that you'll be coming over, we felt that there are a lot of pertinent questions about the nature of cricket in Afghanistan, given the new dynamic situation that need to be asked. So, to that end, so I'd like to start off by asking that. So, the Taliban recently they approved Afghanistan's first cricket test since their takeover. And they mentioned that the Afghan team can play with the other international teams. Now, this is in contrast to the previous regime, when any form of entertainment, including sports, was banned. Given that, sir, would you like to make any predictions about the changed perception towards sports of the Taliban, or what other changes we can expect? Any restructuring, etc.
I would like to start my note with thanking Dr. Bhattacharya and Team CNPR for having me. Just to answer your question, Taliban was never against cricket. Like, cricket started in their regime back in 97, 98, and we held our first ever provincial tournament in 2001 in their last days of their regime in Afghanistan. For us as an Afghans, and for me as an ex-sports administrator, the future of cricket is not a big concern for us, because cricket is in the blood of every Afghan right now. We have captured the entire nation's attention, and cricket has become #1 sport in the country, regardless of the situation or the government structure. The main question is that how Afghanistan would look like in the near future. We really worried and the main worry for us Afghans are the crisis for identity and abandonment. I don't think so the future of cricket would affect greatly in terms of the talent and the players that we have at the grassroots level. The future is bright, and even if the current system collapse, I mean the cricket system collapse, we can survive for coming 10 years, because we have worked that much. The amount of work that has put behind Afghanistan cricket, it's like we can sustain at some stage till 10 more years, even if the current system collapses completely.
To that end, sir, so you mentioned that there is a larger worry about the crisis for identity. So I'd like to connect both the issues. So this question of identity, especially of gendered identity, is a very pertinent one in today's scenario of Afghanistan. Given that, sir, so I believe recently, rather for the last many years, 5, 10 years, the Afghanistan women's cricket team had been coming up. They had been performing fairly well. To that end, sir, even though the Taliban has mentioned, they have said that they would allow women to continue working. What about not the explicit, but the implicit effects that women's cricket might face under the Taliban in the face of, say, some changes to the funding that they receive, the permissions that they're allowed to like use, etc. What are your views?
Uh, Women cricket is always a very sensitive topic inside Afghanistan, irrespective of the regime. Like in previous regime, we were also struggling with the development of women cricket. I can recall that there was some donation was granted from the U.S. Embassy, $550,000 for empowering women cricket, and that didn't we couldn't able to spend that money, and that went back to US embassy, and they were quite they were not happy with that effort. But the main problem was that the society were not accepting women to play cricket. Of course, there was some progression in that regard, but that was very slow. But the progression was there. We managed to start women cricket in 2 provinces, Kabul and Herat. But the progressions were very slow. But surprisingly, I had a chat with the current chairman of Afghanistan Cricket Board, Mr. Fazli, a few days back, and in our discussion, women cricket came in. And I asked him that so many media and people, international media, are concerned about women cricket's future. And he said that we are very committed to that. Whatever work has been done so far, we are committed to keep it going. And also in his recent interview with one of the local TV channel, he indicated that that they are committed for women cricket development. So it's a surprising element for me. And to be honest, with the current regime, although there are a lot of talks going on in the media about Taliban and their behavior and what future holds for Afghanistan. But for us, as an Afghan, and following it from the ground, and living in the country, or though I'm not, but I work from UAE, but my chats with my close friends, there are a lot of optimism still at the mind of Afghans. And if I tell to the viewer that we Afghans, we live with hope. We suffered quite a lot. We suffered from 4 decades of war. Like we had casualties, even in last 20 years of Americans and their government inside Afghanistan. We, on average basis, we had more than 300 people dying from each side every day. But since Taliban took over, at least that number reduced drastically. And whatever they are promising or they're saying to the nation, it's quite pleasing to the ear, and so far they are delivering. For me, it's a biggest trial for Taliban. Previously, they were a military group fighting for their own cause. Right now, they are the ones who took over Afghanistan by military way, by force, or whatever way. Right now, it's the biggest trial to them. They are holding the government, and 36 million Afghans are looking for them. They have to fulfill to the expectations of every individual, regardless of their ethnicity, regardless of their tribe, regardless of what language they speak. The expectations are from the government, and currently the government structure is on pause. And what they are saying is that they will come up with an inclusive government which would be acceptable to the Afghans and also to the international community. So as I begin my communication to you guys with the fear of identity crisis and abandonment, our biggest fear is that what Taliban have in their sleeve. what kind of a government structure would they bring, as they're saying in 2 to 3 days time they would come up with an inclusive government structure. So A, is it acceptable for the entire nation, and B, is it acceptable for the international community? So these are our biggest fear: the identity crisis, the abandonment. That's something that gives us severe anxiety.
Right, sir. And continuing in that vein, so a theme of what you've been talking about so far has been the dichotomy, the strange dichotomy between what the world and Afghans remember of Taliban as it was in their last regime, and the face that they have been projecting up till now in the last month or so. To that end, sir, do you feel that something akin to, say, South Africa in the 1990s, though done in a very different context, can be pursued by the Taliban in terms of using sports as a mode of diplomacy to further their interests and their acceptability at the international stage? This was a theme because even in South Africa, after a period of, say, isolation, after a period of international diplomatic stagnation, once apartheid fell apart, what they tried to do was they used sports, they used rugby, they used cricket as a means of reconnecting with the world. Do you feel a similar sports diplomacy can be conducted by the Taliban?
I think through cricket we have answered this question of yours. If you recall Afghanistan before 2010, we were different. We had different identity, and we were received differently by the internationally, globally. Through cricket, we have given that identity, a new identity to Afghans and Afghanistan itself. Like, I still recall myself before 2010, wherever I was traveling, if I would introduce myself as an Afghan, people were reluctant to speak to me because they had different perception. The perception was drugs, killing, and war and fighting. And after 2010, the more cricket got evolved and the more we traveled all over the world, we produced not just local stars, we produced international stars, we produced global idols to the youth, likes of Rashid Khan, Muhammad Nabi, Asghar Afghan, Mujib Zadran. The perception changed totally for Afghans. So through cricket and through sport, we have given Afghanistan and Afghans a real positive identity. So that's why I'm saying cricket was not just a game, it was a moving force to unify the country and to give a real identity of Afghans, who we are as a human being globally. So the question is not that how sport would do, how better the sport would do. The question is that how the system would handle that factor, because it's a force. It's a force, and can they use it for the betterment of the country and their identity? Because in last 5 years, unfortunately, the previous regime mismanaged that part, and they thought that okay, through sport they can use that sport into their advantage by putting their own people in at the leadership, and they could pass their messages quite transparently. That's where they got mistaken, and they brought some leaders to the different leading sports in the country, such as Cricket Board, Football Federation, or National Olympic Committee, that they were not from the sports industry. And sport industry, not just cricket, National Olympic Committee, Afghanistan Football Federation, Afghanistan Cricket Board suffered drastically, and due to unprofessional leaders, we suffered quite a lot, and it was we got a major setback in our development. So for the new regime, as I told you, it's not just that, okay, we have already proven our point, we have all the platforms. It's just to the new regime, whatever regime that is coming to, uh, not regime, whatever structure that is coming to run Afghanistan's government machinery. How would they treat sports? Because sports is a huge force in Afghanistan.
Right, sir. So to that end, now that you mentioned that sports is certainly, it is a force in Afghanistan. It is something which every Afghan is running in their veins, and they wholeheartedly support it. But sir, as a former sports administrator, you probably know better than any of us here about how important perception and marketability is in sports. So, for instance, this has happened in the past, where in Pakistan there was that infamous attack on the Sri Lankan cricket team. It has happened at various Olympics where security concerns were raised about the players themselves. Given that a similar situation might be perceived by the rest of the world in Afghanistan currently, so do you feel that any promotion of of Afghani cricket domestically might be hit in terms of its scope and its interests due to the takeover of the Taliban?
Uh, I missed your question. You mean like, will there be any lack of sponsorship and commercial opportunities since Taliban's takeover?
Yes, sir. Because of the what
Security?
shall I say? Yes, sir. Possible security issues or simply perception issues.
Well, to be honest, we never had that market inside Afghanistan. We never had that market. We always looked beyond Afghanistan because the television that we had inside the country, private televisions, they were heavily uh, uh, reluctant or dependent on donors, such as embassies that were working there, and there were that perception of commercialization was lacking inside the country, and it was a huge challenge for me as a sports administrator. So what we did precisely really well, we managed to establish a market for ourselves outside of Afghanistan. So the shift of Afghanistan cricket to India was a huge opportunity for us, and we grasped that very well. I never looked like inside Afghanistan to have a global media partner, because for cricket, for any sports, three revenue streams are major: broadcast, gate revenue, and your ground in stadia rights, and your TV team jersey right. Luckily, we had a local sponsorship. A local company called Alukozai came up with open heart, and we accepted, and they became our title sponsor. But yeah, for TV rights, we went outside Afghanistan. We convinced Bangladeshi company to become a broadcast partner, and then we had a local television that they were looking after domestic rights. Since we never played international cricket inside Afghanistan, uh, as I mentioned previously, there was a force behind, a strategical objective was to uh, promote our cricketers and make them not just a local heroes, but a global idol and global role models. So that's why wherever we played inside India, the grounds were filled because of Rashid Khan and likes of Rashid Khan, Muhammad Nabi, and Mujib Zadran. So gate revenue were always something very beneficial for us. For domestic cricket, we had our leagues called Shpagiza, since Afghans are a huge fan of cricket. Wherever we had our domestic event and wherever there were national team featuring in those competitions, the grounds were filled by the crowd. We had franchisee events inside the country, and also Afghanistan Premier League was a huge success for us. So we had to build platforms for these revenue streams. But to answer your question, once the security situation stabilizes in Afghanistan, where there are some optimism going on, and as I said, we Afghans lives with a hope. This is the only month that we have seen very little killings, very little violence. So we are with a hope that okay, even though Taliban perception behind Taliban are very violent, and since their takeover, they're saying that okay, they are changed. So it's a historical trial for them. Afghanistan is a very historical country, and we're so proud of our history, and we live for our values and history. So will they live up to that? To the expectations of Afghans? That's a huge question for us. If the security and the situation stabilize inside the country, of course, Afghanistan would be a huge market, because in cricket, if you say subcontinental countries, India, by far there is no competition for Indian cricket market, TV rights, everything. There is no competition. After that, Pakistan and Bangladesh, they're doing very well. But as I'm telling you, if the situation gets stabilized in Afghanistan, Afghanistan would go ranks in ranks, and it we would compete any other nation other than India in commercialization of the sports.
Right, sir. That certainly strikes a very hopeful tone, and I hope that such a revolution in some point in the near future does come true. To that end, sir, if I were to move into slightly specific territory, in the similar vein that we've been continuing so far, what would you say about the cooperation that the Afghanistan Cricket Board may expect from the BCCI in India in the months, weeks, and years to come, given the change in the situation? I mean, there has been some cooperation in terms of infrastructure. I believe the Afghan national team, they played certain matches on Indian soil, in Indian ground. So do you feel would that be continued? Would that be extended? Your take, sir.
I'm very much hopeful that the relationship with India Afghanistan cricket continues. Look, cricket is, I'm always saying that we should not mix sports and politics. Sports brings people together. And through cricket, we have seen that, we have witnessed that. Through cricket, we brought Indians and Afghans very close. We brought Pakistani and Afghans very close. Even when we played Bangladesh, that closure came, that bond came very close. So India is a huge opportunity for Afghanistan cricket development, and that has to be considered. And that's where I say the fear of abandonment should not come into the account. Like ICC, International Cricket Council, has a huge role to play in the coming days for Afghanistan cricket's development. They should not abandon Afghan cricket regardless of whatever structure comes into place. And also with BCCI, I don't think so there would be any change. I think India is still our home ground, and UAE is still our home ground. And I hope that continues, and it remains the same way.
Yes, sir. Sir, as you mentioned the ICC, I'd like to ask a question. So, in recent times, there have been news reports where players and administrators have reported that even though they reached out to the International Cricket Council, they've either received very deferring responses, or they've been sidelined, or just essentially their cries for clarification on how the ICC would look at the state of affairs as it is, has been met by silence, objective and objective and complete silence. So is this only a temporary thing? Do you feel that in the coming days, the ICC, after they've assessed the situation completely, they'll be making some announcements about this?
I think obviously there would be concerns from ICC on Afghanistan cricket currently, but I haven't heard on such thing. I don't think so. There would be any major issue because the reality is that the previous government has collapsed and new government has taken over. And as per ICC's constitution, that government's direct interference in any board's internal operations has been seen as a violation of the constitution of ICC, and I don't think so. Such thing has happened yet because Taliban just only appointed an interim chairman. That is the also ECB's constitution that the leader of the country, patron in chief, would be the president of the country. We don't have a president of the country so far, but he can only appoint a chairman of Afghanistan Cricket Board, and he also can appoint the board members, which is nine board members, including the chairman of the board. So I did not see any involvement or any interference from the Taliban in the Afghanistan cricket operations. But yeah, they have appointed an interim chairman, which is whatever government that comes, they can do that. The chairman always been changed by the new president. So right now the question is, we don't have a president, but we don't have a chairman as well, previous chairman, because he was never there in Afghanistan, and unfortunately the entire government were run by the people who were not resided inside Afghanistan. They were running administrations, such national institutions like Afghanistan Cricket Board, from their homes based in London or America or in any other European countries. We never had them physically. So we never had a chairman. So now we have a chairman sitting inside Afghanistan Cricket Board.
Right, sir. Sir, now let's move back into the internal situation of Afghanistan. So, sir, you mentioned this the Shpagiza Cricket League, which is extremely popular within the country, as you mentioned, and it aims to launch local talent. It gives them a platform to come up, perform on the national stage. It is viewed by all the citizens of the country. So, given that this is a local league, which is played at various locations, do you feel that there might be any problems faced in its conduct? Because even though, as you say, the Taliban, they wouldn't change the fact that Afghanistan remains fundamentally a country which wholeheartedly loves it. That fact cannot be changed. But still, because of the fragile situation on ground, do you feel that the league's conduct might be affected?
Well, I don't think so. There would be any problem. It's up to the capacity of the board administration. Are they good enough to conduct Shpagiza? I don't see any other obstacle, logistical obstacles or any security obstacles. The players are there. The teams have been sold. The franchisee owners are there. They're quite excited. The entire nation is quite excited to see Shpagiza to happen. But it definitely depends to the capacity of the board and administration. Are they good enough to conduct this league?
Yes, sir. Now, sir, coming to the situation of specific players within the Afghan cricket team. So you mentioned there are superstars like Mohammad Nabi, Rashid Khan. So given that these are players who have played across the world, I remember watching a match with Rashid Khan in the IPL. He was fabulous. Given the marketability that such players bring, do you feel that in a way, because as you mentioned, the internal restructuring of the board, for instance, the first time that the board actually has an in-house, a chairperson who is in Afghanistan, so they might be able to take actions that are slightly more pertinent to the on-ground situation. Given that, do you feel that it might actually present an opportunity for superstars such as Rashid Khan, in terms of their marketability? Do you think they could be better promoted? Do you think their appeal to the masses could be better utilized by a board which is slightly more?
I really hope so. I really hope so. What really, I'm really disappointed at last 2.5, 3 years since 2019, Afghanistan Cricket Board is without a title sponsor. Afghanistan cricket is the charm of the cricketing globe. Uh, I used to call ourselves, we are the darling of the global cricket arena. We are the charm of the cricket. Like no tournament would be the same without Afghanistan team. And players like Rashid Khan, Muhammad Nabi, Mujib, all these great players that we have produced, the franchisee has taken full advantage of their existence, but we as Afghanistan Cricket Board, we didn't. It doesn't mean that our players are not good enough or we don't have viewership around the globe. It's up to the administration again, and that's where the system made a huge mistake by injecting wrong people at the leadership and by having incapable people running the show and the business, because sports itself is a huge business and you should look at it at a business, and you should understand the nature of that business to run it well and efficiently and effectively. So yeah, I'm quite hopeful that the new setup at Afghanistan Cricket Board do something about it and make Afghanistan Cricket Board financially sustainable.
Right, sir. And continuing in that vein, I've just come across a very recent piece of news that Taliban, they have given the green light to Afghanistan, the test match between Afghanistan and Australia, which will be a historic occasion. To that end, sir, do you feel that, as you've mentioned, that there have been various discrepancies about the way in which Afghan cricket has been organized, over the way Afghan cricket has been organized over last 5-6 years? Do you feel, such as this test match being conducted, are there any other explicit measures which you feel as a former administrator, as somebody who knows the ins and outs of the game, of what happens behind the game? What are the things that the new administration, what you would expect from the new administration?
I'm extremely sorry I lost your question.
Right. So my basic question is that just like the Taliban just gave a green light to the test match between Australia and Afghanistan, this is a very forward-looking measure. Do you feel that, given the, as you mentioned, the lack of excellent management in the last 5 to 6 years, what are the other measures that can be taken by the incoming board, the new chairman who's been appointed, to maximize, the potential of Afghan cricket?
You mean increasing the number of games for the national team?
That would be one way at increasing the reach and
Okay,
scope.
you mean to what the administration should do to
yes, sir. Yes, sir. To bolster the sport.
Profile.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes.
As I told you, cricketers should run the show, and appointing right people on the right job is a key element. And Afghanistan Cricket Board currently is lacking a strategy. They don't have a strategy, and when an organization doesn't has a strategy, obviously it loses its way. So you cannot treat an administration like a board, a cricket board, just on day-to-day basis. You have to have your short-term, medium-term, and long-term strategies, and you have to work to a specific vision. So I haven't seen any strategy from last 3 years, 2.5 years. So there has to be a specific strategy. I think the current administration, the current structure should conduct some internal meetings within its core team and think tank, understands the ground reality, understands the potential of Afghanistan Cricket Board, and based on that study, they should come up with a strategy, and to achieve those strategical objectives and strategical vision, they should work, and they should plan their action plans accordingly. I think every department that works inside the organization should have a specific definition, and every member who runs that department should his title should have a specific definition, and those definitions should align towards achieving those objectives and those goals. So it's very testing period, and for Afghanistan, it's a high time for Afghanistan Cricket Board, not just for Afghanistan Cricket Board, but for Afghanistan government structure in totality. I think coming month or two will answer some of our questions, and next 6 months would give us a clear picture where Afghanistan is heading, not just in terms of sports, but in terms of a nation.
Very well, sir. And with that, we come to the end of this extraordinarily informative interview session. I'd like to thank you on behalf of the entire team at Center for National Policy Research for giving us this time of yours from your very busy schedule and answering these questions, which have helped us gain a very deep insight into the nature of cricket in Afghanistan.
Thank you, Mr.
With this, I'd like to hand over the baton to Monali. Monali, take it away.
What a knowledge-filled interview session it was. I, Monali, on behalf of Team CNPR, would like to extend hearty gratitude to Sir Shafiqullah Asmat for enlightening us with his expertise and experience on cricket. After all, who isn't a cricket fan? Further, I would also like to thank Abhiraj, our interviewer, for the session, and Sayak Sir and Pallavi ma'am for providing us with this opportunity to talk to the man himself, Sir Shafiqullah Asmat. Thanks to the digital team, even management, and the technical team for ensuring smooth functioning of the interview. Thanks to Himanshu and obviously the bunch of cricket enthusiast audience that we had for the interview session today. As Sir rightly said, that sports brings people together. We at CNPR are trying to bring together all the matters of public policy that is of concern for everyone, be it in the field of sports or nation in general. Therefore, to stay tuned about further events, do follow us on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and Instagram. And of course, you can find all our events on YouTube, so don't forget to subscribe. Thank you once again, everyone. Keep ducking at the unwanted hurdles and do hit a 6 when the right opportunity strikes. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, guys. Have a lovely day.
Sayak, sir, you're on mute.
Yeah, so thanks to everyone. And with this, we would like to end the session. I would have just one big request to Mr. Shafiqullah Asmat Stanikzai, that we all know, or we are sure that within a few months from now, once Afghan cricket gets back on the tracks, gets back on the rolls, then we would like to have one again big interview with Mr. Stanikzai, and we would like to celebrate the return of Afghan cricket. So we are sure that they would be very soon. And with this hope and with these expectations, we end today's sessions, and we look forward to have you back soon on CNPR, sir. Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. Bye.
Thank you. Thank you. So with this, we end the session today. Thanks to all.